What do you get when you mix epic anime-style action with powerful biblical themes? You get Gabriel and the Guardians. Today we're sitting down with the show's creator, Jason Moody. Stick around, this is one conversation you don't want to miss. Kingdom Builder TV starts right now.
I've been diving headfirst, 110%, driving with a lead foot, already over the edge. I've been diving headfirst, 110%, driving.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Kingdom Builder TV. I'm your host, Mike Laxton, and today we have a really exciting conversation lined up. We're diving into a brand new anime-inspired fantasy series, Gabriel and the Guardians, brought to you by Angel Studios. And we're honored to have the show's creator, Jason Moody, with us. Jason's incredible background is not just in animation and storytelling, but also in developing interactive media, comics, and even projects in virtual and augmented reality. Jason, welcome to Kingdom Builder TV.
How's it going, man?
It's going pretty good, right? But yeah, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. Myself and my kids have seen it. It's really excited. They both really like the anime feel to it. So really just want to dive into the heart of the show and kind of get your thought on the reason for it. So with that being said, why? I guess is the first question. What is a story behind it? I'm sure. What kind of message were you hoping to bring with that? Bringing Gabriel to the Guardians to the streaming platform.
So this story really starts a long time ago. I as a kid, I just loved cartoons, loved Saturday mornings, loved anime, watched Dragon Ball and Trigun, and then also hyper influenced by like the original X-Men animated series, Disney's Gargoyles, shows like that. Obviously Ninja Turtles, Thundercats, all that stuff. And so, all of that sort of laid a certain tapestry, right, of like just like what I liked and what my sensibilities were. And I really wanted to make similar things. I wanted to tell stories and make cartoons. But like as we all do, I wanted to tell those stories from a certain perspective, right? Like I wanted it to reflect like my worldview and the things that even as a kid, I really believed in. I grew up, my dad was in the military and then he got out when I was around 10 to become a pastor. So even at 10, 11, 12, like faith was a pretty important part of how I related to the world. And so faith was an important part of how I wanted to tell stories and even media that I consumed. Anytime something came out that had even some semblance of orientation to it that seemed to revolve around faith in some way, I was excited about that. I was like, oh, like that's cool. That represents, there was this really cool Archangels comic actually in the late 90s that it was just like, as soon as that came out, I was like, oh my gosh, like this is amazing. And so I grew up being like, this is what I'm going to do. And then I got into my 20s and realized this is really hard to do. Like, this is really hard to get into. Like, this is an incredibly difficult job that I've put my hopes and dreams in that, this is hard to do. And so after, not without trying, because I really tried to get into comics. I really tried to different angles. I was always trying to pitch something and just being a dude from the Midwest, in the somewhat, well, not pre-internet, but like in a time when watching things on the internet was really for diehard interneters. You know what I mean? Like early internet days, there was this like internet cartoon called Star Runner. It was done on Flash. And the chances of you creating something like that and getting a viewership that would allow you to do it for a living was just, it was just really non-existent. So I pretty quickly, but not, I tried though. I really did try. But eventually I realized I was like, I'd gotten married. I had a kid on the way and I was like, okay, I got to go and get a job, like a real job. You know what I mean? Put childish things away. And, I ended up getting into e-learning. So fast forward 15 years, 20 years. I've got a pretty decent career making, interactive, innovative training for JP Morgan Chase. And on the side, I had actually become a worship leader, and so I was doing
Mm.
a lot of worship leading. And then COVID hit, man, and
Mm.
like it just everything seemed to change, right? Like the whole, already you had this sort of temperature for the internet that was like, oh, people can make stuff and they can put it on the internet and like do well with it. And then all of a sudden it was like the only thing that could actually be produced during COVID was really animation. You couldn't get together in a space and shoot, you know what I mean? And so a lot of production shut down. And so the idea of being able to create a remote show, like make a show, but do it remotely, doing that in animation was like, you could kind of do that. And so not that I went in with that idea though. I went into this when COVID hit. It was like we couldn't gather, so our church wasn't meeting. I wasn't leading worship in a room with people. I tried to do it online, and that was like this just is not it. You know what I mean? Like kudos to those who could like really do online worship services, but man, it was just not. It was like really, it was missing what I felt was like the essential ingredient, which was
Mm-hmm.
actually being together and feeling the presence of our creator in a room. And so, yeah, from there, I didn't have a lot to do, right? Like it was like we weren't gathering. Work had gotten really slow because COVID. And so I got a sketchbook, man, and I just started sketching. I hadn't really sketched in a long time, so started drawing and started listening to a podcast called The Bible Project, Tibaki. And man, dude, just opened my eyes to the Old Testament. And again, I grew up in the church, but like a lot of modern American evangelical worldviews and churches, you kind of just like, it's like this, the Old Testament's nice for telling Sunday school stories, right? It's like, that's great. But for the most part, let's try to focus on the New Testament.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, guys, let's make sure our daily readings are from the New Testament. But man, like Tim Mackey opened my eyes in a lot of ways to Genesis and the beauty of the Old Testament. And so I just couldn't help but begin to imagine a narrative, a show, an animated series that would like tell some of these cool stories. It really just started out of Noah, like the story of Noah. The moment I got to Genesis 6, man, Genesis 6, in the days of Noah, there were giants that walked the earth. And these giants are the sons of the Watchers, right? They're the offspring, they're the hybrid offspring of mortal women and celestial beings. And it's just like, depending on how you interpret it, right? Like as an idea, this was a crazy idea. Like, and I was like, where was this during Sunday school for me? I've heard the Noah story a lot. I never heard about the Watchers and the giants that were, causing a ruckus on the earth. And so that was the spark. It was just all this kind of came together in this moment, in like 2020, when it was like I had the time and I had the passion and I had this idea for a story. And it really sparked out of that.
When you talk about the Book of Genesis, I've done a bit of studying in the Book of Genesis, and
Yeah.
you mentioned that the Watchers and the celestial beings there. It's like you don't really hear about that much unless you again do that deep dive. So I think that's for me internally. That was an awesome part that you're bringing to life some of these topics that you don't get to hear about. So I and then I know you bring in some ancient Mesopotamian texts in there as well. So that really just kind of, there's so much you can go with that, which I mean, I've only seen the first episode. I think that's all the ones that's out currently, but it just gets you excited for what there's to come. So with Gabriel and the Guardians, can you kind of walk us through some of those key locations that we're going to get into, or what we've already seen in that first episode, and how that's going to shape the journey of the characters involved?
Yeah, so I mean, this started. The idea really started pretty historical. It was like the character of Noach was in the original script Noah, right? Like, and we weren't. It was Earth. It was like it was taking place in the city of the Nimrod Nimrod was the king, of the Sumerian king of
Mm.
of this if you look at Genesis. And so it's really set in that space. And so looking at, I just consumed so much academic text and podcasts and documentaries about Sumer, right? And the Akkadians and so what took shape, right? As we pushed into that, we began to imagine, well, okay, what if it wasn't one-to-one? What if we moved into a parable? What if, like Jesus, we looked at the truth of these scriptures, but we start our story with a once upon a time, right? Like Jesus does, right? Jesus wants to articulate the truth of the Torah, but man, he told stories like, once upon a time, there was a man who owned a field. This field is like the kingdom of God. It's like, wow, what a story, right? Like, what a parable. And so we started to think about it in those terms. Could we articulate really cool themes and marinate our narrative in truth, but take it one step away? Let's go sort of the Narnia route. And that did a couple things that helped us. For one, I think it helped us from moving into any what some people might consider heretical space, right? As we try to tell these really fun fantasy oriented stories with giants. And it's like, I think people can put up with like Goliath as a giant in the Bible, but like once you're trying to be, there were like lots of giants in the Bible. They're like, yeah, that's feeling a little heretical, buddy. And so I think that moving it over for the sensibility of the modern Christian viewer, I think that's helped us earn a little equity. That was intentional. And it allowed us to sort of deal with some of the themes and the locations, a lot of the different locations and a lot of the different cultures that we wanted to try to show in a little bit more of a non-linear way. And so specifically, we've got the Bakora, and that's where Knock is from. And the Bakora are this idea of the last tribe to follow the ways of the creator. You know what I mean? Like, that's who these people are. So in our world, we have the creator, Ea. And Ea, by the way, is just the Hebrew word for I am. A lot of people think that Yahweh is I am, but Yahweh is actually he is. Moses, God referred to himself as Ea when he met Moses. And then Moses then referred to him as Yahweh, which is he is. And so we were like, you know what? Ea is something that, like, that's literally what God calls himself, but it feels like it feels kind of removed a little bit in this odd way because everybody thinks of the word Yahweh. And so we used Ea. And so in our world, this is a world where people have forgotten their creator, right? Like the world of Ara, which is where this all takes place. The mortal realm of Ara is mostly this culture. Certainly the ruling class of this world has forgotten their creator and actually now worship other beings that are presenting themselves as God. And again, that's going to that Watcher text, right? That's going to this idea of these fallen beings who, if you watch any Ancient Aliens, they're always talking about the Anunnaki, and so pulling in this idea of like, there's a lot of crossover between the biblical Watchers and the Sumerian Anunnaki. And so anyway, we've got the Bakora, who are this sort of hidden, lost tribe that still follow the wind and ways of Ea. And then you have the presiding class of the ruling civilization, which is the Kayanarans. And Kayanara is this very kind of sci-fi fantasy inspired version of the Sumerians. And those are the two kind of primary. We've got other cultures that represent different things that you would find particularly in Genesis, Canaanite tribes and things like that. But the two kind of primary are the Bakorans and the Kayanarans.
Now, I know towards the end of the first episode, for those who haven't watched it yet, not really a whole lot of spoilers, and it kind of leads you into a nice cliffhanger of like what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You get introduced to the eternal. You get introduced to the eternal seed.
Yeah.
So that has some powers to it that obviously Gabriel's going after it for a reason.
Right.
Can you kind of explain that significance and how it connects to the biblical and spiritual themes that you're trying to represent in the show?
Yeah, that's a good question, man. So the seed, the eternal seed, uh, thematically it represents a few things. There's an entire idea of what do we carry? Like, what is the gospel itself, right? The truth, the good news, the light that we carry within us, right? The kingdom of God is near, nay, it's in you, right? And so this idea of we play with this idea of the light and the seed, and in our world, Aya left 12 seeds from the tree eternal for the Arons, for the people of Ara, the Claiborne, and he left it as a way for them to rule and reign their world well, right? As Genesis, the first command that God gives Adam and Eve is to rule over all things, right? And to subdue the earth, which that Hebrew word is actually, it's a lot less when you look at the translation and what it actually means. It literally means to bring the most fruit from, right? To make the earth as fruitful as possible, subdue it, turn the chaos into order, which is a big theme of our show, chaos into order. And so the seeds were these things that represented sort of the raw goodness of the creator, the raw power of creation itself. And when if you look at the beginning of this story, as you'll find out, has a lot to do with why is this world like this? Why is it all barren in a wasteland? It's wild and waste. Why? And the narration at the beginning kind of insinuates, begins to talk about the light that's the star of the single star that shines in the sky. And then as you watch the episode, you kind of become to realize, like, oh, that's Paradem. Like that star is where Gabriel is at. And there's separation. But that we have a prequel story that kind of begins to tell you, like, well, what happened? Like, that was once part of the world of Ara, and the idea was that the people of Ara were created with the destiny of taking this unmade planet, this place that's all desert and not fruitful, and they had the pleasure of partnering with their creator to sort of terraform, if you will, the planet with these seeds. These seeds, they were supposed to take these seeds and plant them all over the entire planet, and then everywhere where they would plant one of these seeds, a garden like the garden that you see Gabriel in Paradem would grow on the planet. And so when something happens, I don't want to spoil it, but when something happens and Paradem has to be taken from Ara, to protect the tree that is the source of all life. But the people of Ara aren't left abandoned. Aya leaves them with these 12 seeds. So these seeds are really important because they really hold the power of creation. Unfortunately, though, as mortals do, instead of coming together and using these seeds to do what they're supposed to do, to fulfill their destiny and bring the most fruit from that world and cultivate it into something that's good and a paradise, they war over it. They spend 1,000 years fighting over these seeds, trying to control them, trying to harness the energy out of them for whatever the will of men would be. And so when you get to Gabriel, what he knows is that these seeds are incredibly powerful, and if in the wrong hands, it could tip the scales, right, in the world of Ara, and really, really create, if the bad guys get another seed, that could just be detrimental. And so that's why he goes after it. He's there to guard him and to make sure that no one else gets these seeds. Like the world, Aya gave 12 to the Arons, and that's what they're supposed to have. And so he goes after this seed pretty hard. You see in the episode, he's really trying to protect it because that's what he's been assigned to do. And from his perspective, if it gets onto the world of Ara, it could mean doom for the people of Ara.
And I like at the end that you have that cliffhanger of, hey, this is, he's gone after the seed and he's in this place. It's like, okay, what's going on? So I like how the episode ends out that way. And from that first episode, you get an idea of the main cast that's going to play through the series from what it looks like.
Yeah.
But speaking of the cast, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. Me and my son, especially animated Star Wars. I said, I'm sure you know exactly where I'm going with this.
Yeah. We got some hitters.
How was it? How was it just working with Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin Skywalker? James Arnold Taylor being the voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi and Matt Lanter in the Clone Wars series. How was it working with them, and what did they bring as part of the incredible voice cast? I mean, you even got my daughter; she's a big Miraculous fan from Disney, so Christina Valenzuela's in there as well.
Yeah.
So, what's it like working with such an incredible voice cast in this project?
It's been really humbling, honestly. Like it's just been, they're so cool and they're so talented. And it's just been really fun. A lot of those voice actors really hadn't had a lot of opportunity to play original characters. So a lot of them are known for characters that already had someone that embodied that character, right? Obi-Wan already was embodied by two actors, and James got the role. Anakin was already embodied, and then even with Johnny Young Bosch, it's like he's doing the English interpretations of very popular Japanese characters. Same thing with Miraculous, right? That was a very popular French character that then Christina got to do the English version. So for them, I think it was fun because we actually got to kind of find these characters together. They interpreted them from the script, and then like James, dude, like his first read so some people don't know, he actually voices both Dianel, who's the big celestial with the beard, and then he also voices Malacros, which is the bad guy. And so but with Dianel, when he first read for Dianel, it was like he brought such a unique take that we hadn't really thought of. I went back literally right after we recorded with him and I redesigned the character immediately. Like based on his performance, I went and completely redesigned. He looked completely different. And so that was cool. That was very cool.
So that definitely that dynamic, because they all have a lot of experience under their belt. So I think that really was a nice draw in. And again, I saw that, I was like, okay, this is going to be a really good show, and selling my son on it too, because he's like, well, kind of questionable, like, well, what's this? He loves Dragon Ball and things like that. So I think having that cast is amazing, and just to hear how James himself just helped shape that character. That's
they did a good job too, right? Like,
absolutely.
The performances.
I mean, if you listen in a little bit, you can kind of pick like, okay, you can hear the Obi-Wan and Anakin and Miraculous or Ladybug in there from the characters, but overall, I mean, in general, especially with this show, it's great. Especially you have the faith-based audiences, of course, being on Angel Studios. But generally speaking, what do you kind of hope for the faith-based viewers as well as the general fantasy fans take away from the show?
To speak to the that dichotomy of like, oh, is it a faith-based show? Is it a Christian show? Is it a secular show? The way we see it is like, I don't think that anybody goes and looks at Da Vinci's Last Supper, not to say that we're creating the something to that same magnitude, but the point is that I don't think that anybody goes and looks at it and questions whether or not that's Christian art or secular art. It's art. It's just art, and it moves people. Like people have gone and stood in front of Da Vinci's Last Supper, and I'm sure have had tremendously spiritual experiences considering and meditating upon the moments of Christ that are represented in that painting. But I think that then also people that don't share that faith can go and stand in front of that same painting and
Mm-hmm.
appreciate the artistry of it,
Mm-hmm.
and that it speaks something else, something personal to them. And so that's what I hope for the show, that we can exist in a space that it's beautiful because we worked hard on it, and it's art, and it's really the culmination of a lot of artists
Mm-hmm.
that brought their absolute best as an offering for humanity to participate in it, right? Like those who like anime. So when I say humanity, I mean anime and animation. That part of humanity, that we submit this to them and we go, this is something we created with our heart in it and our best work, and we offer it to you as something that we hope you enjoy, right? And it tastes good, hopefully, and it brings, I hope it brings some level of sustenance,
Mm-hmm.
I hope that it's enjoyable, and I hope that for people who share my faith, I hope that they watch it and they see the painstaking ends that we went to sort of make sure that this didn't feel like it was just a like Christian cash grab thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like we did the work of making sure that this honored the text, but we also did the work to make sure that if you don't really care about that the action's great and the story is well done, and so I think that I hope that people enjoy it, but I hope that they are moved in some way from the themes, in the same way that I think Avatar, The Last Airbender.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, man, you watch that show and it's like it's very entertaining, but man, there are moments that deal with ideas like redemption, and they're beautiful. I mean, they're just absolutely beautiful when it comes to Zuko and his uncle Iroh. I mean, these are beautiful lessons of forgiveness and redemption, and I hope that we are able to present those things as we are able to present the rest of the season.
I think you will. I mean, it'll get people curious, that's for sure. And I think that'll, especially for those who are not believers, they might, they're like, okay, they know ahead of time, because you do kind of preface it that this is, it is on Angel Studios. This is, have some faith-based context to it. So it might be, as you said, it'll draw curiosity. It'll draw people to, hey, maybe they'll start reading Genesis and be like, wow, this is actually, from there, who knows where they'll go from there. So I agree with that immensely. And to yourself, and the credit of all the artists, I mean, just from what I've seen, the art is impressive. The music is awesome. I mean, it's definitely what I would expect in an anime show. If I would just put it out there in that genre, it's it meets that standard. So I applaud you for that. It just draws me, even again, looking forward to the next episode and that as that.
I do want to shout out to Brian Atkinson was our composer,
Mm-hmm.
and I just worked very closely with him to kind of curate a certain sound that I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked at length, and he brought a lot to the table, and he was just a phenomenal composer. And I got to say that, I mean, this is truly independent. I mean, it's truly independent. I know that we are being distributed by Angel Studios, but a lot of people don't realize, like, they didn't produce this.
Mm-hmm.
They helped us do a crowdfund early on, and we raised a small portion of our budget. But I mean, this was made very independently.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's a testament to what can be done in independent animation. I think it is.
Absolutely. I totally 100% agree with that. And it's awesome that you've got that. It gives you a little bit of flexibility to kind of go where you want with it as well. Yeah. So that being said, kind of looking at the future, I know we've only got the one episode out at the moment. If you can talk about it, do you have any plans is it just gonna be like a one season story arc, or do you have any plans for the future at this point that we can talk about?
Yeah, no, I don't mind sharing it all. So right now we have 5 seasons mapped.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so what we want to do is we want to go big and tell the biblical narrative through this fantasy lens. And so we have plans to sort of take the story all the way up through a messianic figure that would show up. And that, this may span hundreds of years in the realm of Ara. But I love the idea. Part of the original idea was, could you tell by using the celestial beings, right? That's what the whole idea was. Like, I want to tell the biblical narrative, but the problem with the biblical narrative is that it's so disjointed. every season, if you were to make the Bible cinematic universe, every season would be a whole new cast of characters. Right? Carryover. It's like if you do the Noah story and then you move on to the Abraham story, you got all new characters next season. And then if you do the Moses story, you got all new characters next season. So it's like, well, could you anchor with some characters that maybe like, I was like really trying to crack it. I was like, because it just started with Noah, and then I was like, I need characters that like live thousands of years. And then I was like, oh my gosh, the Bible has characters like that. They're called angels. You know what I mean? Like, what if this was the story, the biblical narrative told through the lens of the angelic beings? And that's kind of our long scope plan. That didn't change, even though we moved it into a fantasy story. That's still the kind of undergirding of what the overall plot narrative is for the whole show.
Wow, that's 5 seasons. That's definitely a good get something very excited about. So I'm have some great positive content to watch here in the future. So thank you for doing that. And before we conclude, I just had one other question.
Yeah,
if someone was watching or someone who's watching the video right now is kind of wondering if they should give this series a chance, what's that one thing you would tell them about Gabriel and the Guardians to maybe pull them in?
That's good. Do you want to watch something that is pulling from literally the most cosmic and greatest story ever told, in the format of, animation, anime-inspired animation? If that sounds like something you'd be interested in, if you love the idea of this ancient struggle of humanity, of light and dark, and good versus evil, but with the nuance of this shared Earth history, this thing we all can look back to and go, yeah, we all came from those guys. There's these ancient texts that we all share, right? These ancient, the Dead Sea Scrolls are some of the oldest writings in our history. And so if that's interesting to you, this is the show for you.
I'm gonna say amen to that, because that's what pulled me in. I mean, obviously there's all the aspects of the production value, and again, Jason, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. We really appreciate you sharing the heart behind Gabriel and the Guardians. I know I'm looking forward to the rest of this first season and of course future seasons, and maybe we'll get a chance to talk again as this goes down the road. But I'm sure many of our viewers are excited to watch as well. And again, thank you so much for joining us on Kingdom Builder TV. We really do appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Thank you.
If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to like, share, and drop us a comment below and let us know your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss an interview. For more on Jason and Gabriel and the Guardians, including ways to connect and check out the series, hit the links in the description. Plus, explore everything that today's Christian entertainment has to offer. I'm Mike Laxton, reminding you to put Christ first in your lives, and everything else will fall into place. Thanks for watching.